Welcome to the podcast, Guidance with Gab. Learn and unlearn all things wellness. Welcome back to Guidance with Gab. Learn and unlearn all things wellness. So for last week, I know that we talked about creating art and why it is so important because it fuels your soul, your heart. It's an expression of you. It's creative. It connects with your inner child. There is so much that goes into creating art that has nothing to do with the end product. And then I mentioned that I would want to make another episode about how to stay inspired because I definitely know that it is difficult to stay in that kind of wheelhouse of inspiration and a little bit of motivation when it comes to creating art. So this episode is about how to stay inspired and some cool ideas that might help you. Something that I found to be so helpful for me in staying inspired is starting my day inspired. So it's a little bit harder when you start your day kind of in a slump, which sometimes is natural. Other times it's us doom scrolling and things like that. But it's easier to kind of stay inspired versus falling into a rut and then needing to find that motivation and inspiration again, trying to look for it in everything. It's a little bit more difficult. So my number one thing I would say first and foremost is starting off your day, if you can, more inspired and not jumping into distractions. So I know that this is not accessible for everyone. I want to recognize that. It depends on your job, if you have kids, other responsibilities. I know for me, when I was working my 9-to-5 job, it was way more difficult to start my day inspired and keep that going throughout the day when I'm working on things that have literally nothing to do with what I care about and what my interests are. And also there is a crunch for time. So I'm doing more of the necessary things during my wake up time instead of like finding inspiration. It can happen, but I do get it that it is very difficult for a lot of people, depending on what your life looks like, especially if you have children and you're waking up and need to take care of a whole other human being. It can be a lot. So for my mornings, this is kind of what I've been doing recently, which is I wake up, I meditate, I read, and I journal. Maybe not in that order, doesn't really matter. And for me, it comes down to picking a book that I know I'm going to be inspired by versus something like a Colleen Hoover book or a really interesting mystery book. Those are great and entertaining, but they don't give me the same inspiration I need. So since my niche, I guess you can say, is more of the spiritual self-development, wellness vibe, I try to read something along the lines of that. Right now I'm reading Inner Engineering, I think that's the name. I'm not sure. But it's really good and definitely makes me think instead of, again, another distraction. And I was going to talk about this later, but I might as well just talk about it now since I've already opened the can of worms. When you want to stay motivated or inspired, it is so important to be selective of what you are consuming. And consuming is, and your health is, anything that you are reading, watching, hearing, eating, experiencing. Anything that you are taking in is a part of your health and your well-being, not just food and drinks. So if I'm trying to get some more work done and stay inspired in my creative field, I'm going to listen to more spiritual music, things like Beautiful Chorus. I love Beautiful Chorus so much. And for me, I'll also listen to other podcasts that give me some good ideas and, again, just make me think. So we always have a choice when we're listening to music or podcasts or reading a book. We could go for the distraction and the entertainment purpose of it, which is totally fine. But if you're trying to stay inspired, maybe, at least for me, maybe listening to dubstep probably isn't the best way to go about it. And listening to comedy podcasts probably aren't going to make me feel inspired. They're probably just going to give me the entertainment and the comedy and the laughter that I need. But is it filling up my soul and giving me good ideas to produce work? Probably not. So the takeaway from that little tangent is to just be selective when you want to be inspired. Be selective of what you are consuming in any and every aspect, because that will change how your inspiration carries throughout the day and if you can keep it up. Back to my morning routine. The way that I find that to be helpful is when it starts my day off with the journaling, which is gratitude. Sometimes I'll interchange some breath work or yoga. I make sure to make it very flexible for myself so that I'm not like every single day I need to do this. Like I try to make it most days I will do X, Y, and Z. And if one day I'm really not feeling a meditation, but I'm feeling breath work, interchange it. If I'm feeling doing a yoga session, sure. If I want to do a quick stretch, okay. Just being flexible with it helps me actually stay on track with my routine instead of getting lost and then feeling bad and shameful that I haven't, held up the routine as strictly as I wanted to. So I try to be very flexible with that. But doing all of those things that are not distractions in the beginning of the day just set me up at another level. They make me want to do good for myself. They make me want to pour my heart into what I'm doing versus like, oh, that slump when I doom scroll. And yes, I do. I do doom scroll. I personally feel like doom scrolling and distractions are just a recipe for losing your inspiration. There's so many creative thoughts that I feel like we wake up with or could wake up with, but they immediately get squashed when we are distracting and scrolling. And there is a difference between scrolling for inspiration, like if you are a video or content creator, there is a lot of inspiration out there, and there are motivational pages and inspirational ones, hopefully like mine, that you can look at. But there's a difference with the intention of going on for strictly research purposes or just because you're ready to turn your mind off and you want to numb whatever is going on. And that can be really difficult on social media because it's social media. Like, I know you go into the rabbit hole, so do I. Sometimes I open my phone to send a text message to check in on someone, and then I find myself on Instagram like 4 pages deep, and I realize I closed my phone, and then I realized I didn't even message the person I went to message. Like, I don't even know how that happened. So just be very intentional with going on Instagram or any form of, creativity that stems from your phone, because it can be, a messy little loophole. Not loophole, messy little rabbit hole. Another great source of inspiration that I find is being out in nature. I personally feel like nature mimics our own lives in so many ways. I've written a lot of poetry based off of the metaphor of nature and its occurrences and the seasons and the moon and all these cycles that happen and how they're so deeply related to our lives. Even things like birds and the ocean and waves and trees, you can find yourself in any form of nature. And for me, it brings me back to a place of home and groundedness and safety that then gives me the expansion for creativity. There's something about connecting with nature that, at least for me, helps me connect to myself. And then once I'm connected to myself, I then can produce really good creative work. I think when you're connected to yourself, you are so much more likely to produce, the works of your soul. When you are connected to your soul, it's easier to let that pour out of you versus if you are so disconnected from yourself, then it's harder to reach that sense of creativity. That should be a big takeaway from this that I just thought about is if you want to stay inspired, try to connect to yourself. Don't fall into the disconnection. Stay connected to you. And then if you need a break or a second or, 25 seconds, go for it. Do it. Doesn't matter. But if you are trying to fall into the inspiration and really spark that in you, then you need to stay connected to yourself, or at least go on the journey to find your connection to self, because that is when you can do your best creative work, because it is an expression of your soul, expression of you. Another cool tip for staying inspired could be learning something new that falls under the umbrella of whatever your creative work is. So if you are a specific type of painter, maybe you can, learn a different form of paint. If you work with watercolor, maybe try oil painting. For me, I remember when I was doing the challenges and I decided I wanted to learn something new, and that mostly focused on herbalism. It really sparked my inspiration to kind of be better. It made me want to learn. It made me want to expand my knowledge. It made me want to be better for clients and in any capacity that I can help people. It falls under the umbrella of what I work with. So being in that space and learning something new made me feel fresh. And that fresh feeling created the inspiration to keep going and the inspiration to create more and new ideas. It was just nice to have that kind of, okay, the world is still very open, because I know it can get a little tricky and you could get a little stuck in a rut, especially if you are used to doing a lot of the same things. It can just spark maybe even new inspiration for you. It could open up a new door that you didn't know you wanted to open. So I would just give trying something new a chance. There's also something to be said about this and also my morning routine. For this, I was replacing 15 minutes of watching something like Gossip Girl with watching someone teach me about herbalism. And when we want to break a habit, it's harder to break the habit versus just switching in a new habit. So, to make that easier said, I personally think it is easier to implement a new habit that is going to replace your old habit versus just cutting off one habit and letting it go. How that pertains to something like my morning routine, I implemented 3 new things that I can do when I wake up that will replace the doom scrolling. Now, if I just tried to stop scrolling on my phone, then I would probably have a bit more difficulty if I didn't have anything else to do. But since I had backup almost and had these things to look forward to and had these things that I was holding myself accountable to, then it was easier to not go on my phone because I already had things in place that were going to help me not do that. So that was just a little side note. But the next part of inspiration can be very difficult for some people. There's some, healing that might need to be done around this area in order to use this as a form of inspiration. But looking at where other people are at and talking to other people that maybe are in a different place than you, but I don't want to say in a better place because there is no better in that sense, but maybe where you'd like to be, it can be really good to find inspiration from those people. And this is tricky because you don't want to fall into shaming yourself. You want it to be from a place of genuine interest. You don't want to go into it like, oh, this person is so much better than me and I feel so down on myself because I should be where they're at. And you also might need to heal because it may trigger a sense of jealousy and comparison. It's healthy to use this if you are going to be truly inspired by the works of that person. But if you are going to find yourself being jealous and maybe wanting to take them down, maybe not in a literal sense, but in a more mental game that you play with yourself where you're like, they don't deserve this, I deserve this more, and you start shaming you for not being where they're at, then don't listen to this advice at all. Don't listen to this one if you're not in that place. I definitely wasn't at that place, or I was in that place and I wasn't able to truly just be fully inspired. It took me a bit of time, if we're being honest, but now I am at that point, and that's the only reason why I mention that the shame and the jealousy can create this weird space that you don't want to be in. But it is really good to talk to people that fuel the inspiration and aren't spending their whole time with you just gossiping and talking about things that you don't really align with or care about and don't make you feel good inside. Make sure to surround yourself with other people and creators. Not saying you need to drop all your friends and start a new group, but maybe just add in some other people that you can talk to for that purpose. And pretty much the last tip is to be fun with it, to connect to the inner child that lives within you. Of course, I have to bring this back to inner child healing. So sometimes I want to paint, but I don't want to paint, if that makes sense. I don't want to paint something that I need to think about, and that's going to take time. So I'll just make a messy painting. I'll do something that is not anything like I would do. I just kind of get it out of my system. And then once I've got it out and I've had my fun with it, then I'm able to actually create the art that I want to. Whatever field you're in, maybe just let out some steam and don't make it too serious. If you like making more serious videos, make some funny ones. Who cares? Make yourself laugh. Just do some things that, I don't know, kind of get the juices flowing, even if it's not in the direction that you wish it's going to go into. You might need to just kickstart that little piece of creativity in you. And to pretty much wrap this up, don't push yourself if you're not having a very creative day, and don't get down on yourself. Something I really like to do and have found so helpful is to do an admin day if I'm not feeling creative. If I just need to kind of get shit done, I'll sit behind my computer, and that gives me a day to reset. And it also makes me feel productive, and that takes away from getting so down on myself when I don't feel my most creative. We're not always going to be in our most elegant and flowy creative space. It's just, that's not going to happen. It ebbs and flows just like everything in life. And you can't expect that from you all the time. Using the days where you're feeling a little meh, maybe you need a full rest day. Maybe you just need one of those shit days where it feels really good to sit on the couch, watch trash TV, and eat some food. Or maybe you can use that time to be a little bit more productive in a way that is still going to help you, but that isn't necessarily tickling that creative piece in you. Life is all about the balance, and you can't expect to be 100% of anything all of the time ever, because then that wouldn't be life. You wouldn't be able to maybe have your creativity if there wasn't the stability. They all go hand in hand, so don't get too down on yourself. I just want to say, keep creating your art. And if you have any other tips on staying inspired that you like, I am open to share it. I would love to share it with some people, put it on my story. If you like this, then please share it with people. That would help me so much. Like it, subscribe, share. You know the deal. You hear this from all the people. I'm so grateful for you guys listening. Stay inspired. You got this. I'm so proud of you. Have a good day.